Take a look around you, at the bottom of your chairs, at my microphone, and at the tip of your shoelace. What do these things all have in common? Well, if you've played New York Times Connection enough, you would be able to give me multiple answers to this question. However, today, I want to talk about how the world we live in is created and sustained by plastic. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a constant thought that I have is to take a look at the individuals around me and consider how much plastic they produce on a daily, weekly, or even yearly basis. Now, when I consider this, I take into account many factors, drawing inspiration from my own lifestyle and the lifestyles of people around me. So, I know that most of you probably haven't considered this issue before. So let's bring this conversation to you. Think about your daily routine. Hopefully, you start off by brushing your teeth. What are you using to do this task? You're probably using a plastic toothbrush. Then maybe you decide to have cereal for breakfast. This too comes from a plastic bag. You go to school, you sit at your plastic desk, you take notes with your plastic pencils, and then you decide to Uber a lunch that is wrapped in layers upon layers of plastic. You get the idea. Now, I'm not here to stand here and shame anyone in this room. I understand that the society we live in has created a system in which plastic is almost entirely unavoidable. But it does beg the question, what is responsible for the difference in our plastic consumption? To do this, I want to look at a few statistics. The average American person consumes and produces around 221 kg of plastic a year. Now, in comparison, an average Japanese or Korean person consumes or produces around 69 kg of the same plastic. Now, I have been unable to find reliable sources in regards to Taiwanese production, but considering the social and cultural similarities of Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, I would assume that Taiwan's production is skewed more on the 69 kg side of the spectrum. Now, no matter which number we decide to look at, I believe it is undeniable that the plastic crisis is becoming an increasingly hard issue to tackle. Both of these numbers should not be this high. So, society tells us that the plastic crisis is a consumer issue and that it is driven by excessive consumer culture. But I believe that it is time to take the blame off of the individual and target the system that has allowed this consumer culture to be so widespread. In order to do this, let's look at a few more simple statistics. Now, this is the percentage of plastic recycled by the United States and Germany. Let's take a look at the United States. They are only able to recycle 5% of the plastic that they collect. Now, in comparison, Germany is able to recycle 50%. Now, when you look at these two numbers, I assume most of you are going to be focused on the 5% and how in the world the United States is only able to recycle 5% of the 221 kg of plastic that an average person produces per year. But I want to shift your focus on the 50% of plastic that Germany is able to recycle. Considering the fact that the German government and system is the #1 country at recycling, I find it barbarous that only half of what they collect for quote-unquote recycling purposes is actually recycled. So, I believe that the waste management system needs to be changed in a way to bring these numbers down. Now, I would like to put these percentages into your own perspective. Now, think of these perspectives in the context of your latest math exam. Now, if you had a 50%, you would be extremely disappointed yourself. The next test you take, you would try to, as hard as you can, to lift that average up so your GPA and total term grade is not in the ditches. And hopefully you can graduate with a good GPA that gets you into a good college. Now, if you got a 5% on this exam, well, you might just consider dropping the course entirely because it's not the detriment of your mental health, and most importantly, your GPA. Why is it that we are so concerned with trivial matters such as simple math exams, which in the long scheme of things do not have a great impact on your life, but we choose to ignore or act unbothered when we think about recycling and the waste that we create, especially in terms of plastic? Now, I do not think that humanity as a whole has decided they don't care about this issue, but rather, I think as an individual, one believes that they do not have the power to create much change at all. And I don't think this is true, and that is why I am here to propose a solution for how you, as an individual, can help alleviate the plastic crisis. So, I grew up with nature as my background, and environmentalism has always been a passion of mine. However, unlike many others, kind of viewed it as something distant, something that was not accessible to me. Well, that changed a little over a year ago when I clicked on, or actually no, I accidentally scrolled upon a TikTok video. Yes, TikTok, they're not that bad, can bring good in the world. In 15 seconds, I was introduced to the very simple concept of eco-bricking. Now, I'd like to explain this concept to you. So, in this concept, we take a lot of commonplace materials that literally everyone has, such as plastic. You clean that and you cut it. As seen here. Once you've cleaned and cut the plastic, then you can put it and stuff it into PET bottles using, well, here we use my a perch that I stole from my bird, but technically you can use anything you want. That's how commonplace these materials are. Now, I would like to show a visual explanation of this. This here is an Ecobrick that Ecobrick IBSH, a club I founded, has created. This is a PET bottle packed densely with plastics from the very students and faculty members sitting in this room. Now, these are packed extremely densely and are extremely hard, and I would say are hard as rock. So let's have some ASMR. Yeah, that's pretty hard. Anyways, just take this concept and think of it. Oh, and this bottle alone has the power to sequester 0.33 kilograms of plastic. Like that. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now, this might seem a little minimal, but it adds up in the end. And that is why I decided to maximize these effects by creating an Ecobrick club here at IBSH. Now, at its core, Ecobrick IBSH is a social organization. And that's why I took inspiration from a very common social club that I know my family members and a lot of other people I know have participated in, namely the knitting club. So, I took this concept, chatting and gossiping with your friends while creating something, and I replaced the knitting with Ecobricks. Now, there's two added incentives to this in comparison to the knitting and knitting clubs. First, you can ditch the economic burden of buying yarn. These things are already in your house. Second, you can actually conduct change in your community and in the environment as a whole. Now, as I was saying, this concept is so simple that I knew that I could spread it to people of many ages and many backgrounds. That is why in our meetings, we tend to have very simple distribution of how we work. We have a few people cleaning the plastic, a few people cutting the plastic, and my favorite, which is stuffing the plastics into the bottles. You might know this as division of labor. However, while initially division of labor was just used to increase productivity, I tend to think of it as differently. First of all, of course, we get be more productive when we create the eco-bricks themselves, but we also can have our attention drawn away from the actual work of making an eco-brick and having important conversations and important social experiences. And in my 17 years of socializing with people, I understand that this is what keeps people rooted and involved in any cause. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, what do we do with the eco-bricks once they've been created? Well, let's take a look at the etymology of the word. Oh wait, sorry. There's this slide too. So by combining the social effects of eco-bricking and environmentalism, our club has actually updated statistics from what I gave to Caitlin a while ago, sequestered over 50 kg of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When you look at this number and compare it to the 69 kg an average Japanese person produces in terms of plastic, this number actually seems to become less and less daunting. Moreover, that 50 plus kg that you saw on the previous slide is something that our members have created in less than a year. So if you consider the fact of eco-bricking, it could be not an entire solution, but a partial solution to the plastic crisis. Now, let's look at the etymology of the word so we can actually see how Ecobrick can be used to, I guess, do more than just sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So if we split the word into two sections, eco obviously is something related to the environment, and brick is simple as it sounds. It is a building material. So when we combine the two, we understand that eco-bricks are environmentally friendly building blocks that can be used for a variety of projects. I've seen things from small raised garden beds all the way to buildings, and there are actually organizations that build schools in less developed countries out of eco-bricks. Now, it is my goal to hopefully promote this idea and to help take the bad things in our environment and take something that kind of has a detriment to the people living in a community and take these negativities and create it into something positive that will eventually help all members of the community present and in the future. Now, most importantly, I think eco-bricking has given me personal insight in how I kind of think about the plastic and the waste I produce as an individual. At school, I've kind of been known as a plastic collector. People come to me with their clean plastic and are like, Ling, would you please eco-brick this plastic so that I can help? And unfortunately, oftentimes, I have to reject them. The truth of the matter is, I tell them, we actually do not need any more plastic, and we will never run out. I say this generally jokingly, but that's the reality. That's the fact, and that is the sad truth of it. We will never actually run out of plastic unless we create some sort of change. However, I think most importantly, these people do not really understand the impact of their one plastic bag they decide to show me really excitedly. They do not understand the amount of time and effort one piece of plastic has when you have to take personal responsibility over it. They've never sat in their rooms or at a club meeting and with a pile of looming plastic in front of them that they themselves created, no one else, themselves created, and then are individually responsible for cleaning it, cutting it, and then eco-bricking it. This is the time I take on a daily and sometimes daily, weekly, and almost yearly basis. And so unless you understand that kind of love-hate relationship with your plastic, then I think that one cannot really understand how much it impacts society and the environment. If that's the impact that it has on me personally, think about the impact that multiple have on the environment. Now, I believe if we as global citizens can kind of come together in a social and environmental combination, maybe we can become a more eco-conscious society. Now, I understand that from a practical standpoint, eco-bricking frankly does not have the ability to solve the plastic crisis. But as I've said before, if we are able to come together, if we are able to have important conversations and mostly have fun while doing so, then I think that is something we can control. Now, if eco-bricking has the power to ease the anxiety of one individual, to save a couple of sea turtles, to create a cleaner school environment, and help one community member through a building project, then I think that is something worth fighting for. It is well known that environmental activism is largely classist and is not accessible to a lot of different people from different backgrounds. You can kind of visualize this when you think of the people who you think of as environmental icons, or the politicians who actually have an impact on the climate crisis. You think of people like Greta Thunberg, or even Joe Biden, who considers himself the eco-king. These people have one thing in common. They come from a place of privilege and wealth. And that is why I'm here today to promote the use of eco-bricking as a low-cost, low-effort alternative for all people to be engaged in. And I think that is the most important thing you should take out of when you finish listening to this speech. I'm Ling Xiong, and thank you for listening to my TED.